Welcome to the channel. As you can see, we are going to be looking at the Lenovo Legion Go S. This is the Z2 Go model. So there's another one out there with the Z1 Extreme, which will probably have way better performance than this device. But the Z2 Go one is what we have. This device came out a while ago. It was kind of expensive on release, and I'll go ahead and spoil this a bit. I wouldn't recommend buying this at full price, but it has often been on sale for substantially cheaper. And that's one reason I got this, is because this was very tempting at the sale price, which Best Buy and other retailers tend to put it on every now and then. So we're going to take a look at this device. We're going to do a little performance testing, and we'll talk about what this device does and what it doesn't. So let's get right to it. Normally I might record an unboxing for a device like this, but actually I did record one, but it was on the old kind of crappy camera, so I didn't include it in this video here. Also, what was in the box was literally what you see right here, plus a charger. And that was actually all that was in the box. I think, oh yeah, there were 2 sheets of paper. So there's not a whole lot in the box, so unboxing was kind of pointless. One thing I should mention, there is no case. The original Legion Go actually came with a case. This one does not. And I should mention also that I haven't really found a good case for the Legion Go S so far. So right now I've not really been taking it out of the house because, well, I don't really have a case for it. I wouldn't want to take this, just throw it in the bag, given that it's a PC device and they ain't cheap. So if I find a nice bag, I'll do a video on that as well. But so far, I haven't really found a case I like for this thing. But at any rate, that's why there's no unboxing part of this video, because there really wasn't anything substantial in the box, other than the console. So here it is, the Lenovo Legion Go. And as you can see, you can probably see the inch markings around on my cutting board here. But it's a pretty sizable device. It's got an 8-inch screen. It's like about a foot wide. And if you want to know what kind of specifications we're dealing with, let me pull them up real quick. So the one I have has the Ryzen Z2 Go. And don't let the name fool you. The Z2 Go is actually less powerful than the old Z1 Extreme. But, marketing being what it is. This device actually has 32 gigs of RAM, which is a lot. And I look at the specs on this and I think, oh, they're trying to make an interesting business laptop here. But no, they slapped it into a game machine. So 32 gigs of RAM. It's got from my experience so far, a very nice 8-inch screen. It's not OLED, but does have variable refresh rate, supports up to 120 hertz. It's a 16 by 10 screen, kind of like you find on the Steam Deck in the original Legion Go. So that means 1920 by 1200 resolution instead of 1920 by 1080. So get a little bit of a extra vertical resolution there. And this model has a 1 terabyte SSD, which is kind of nice because some other devices have 512, and without replacing the SSD, that actually is kind of limiting given the size of modern games. So 1 terabyte is nice and refreshing here. Comes with Windows 11. One important thing about this device is it actually has full SteamOS support. I will probably be installing SteamOS later, but for right now, we're going with the Windows that it comes with. But Windows 11 comes on it by default. We've got 2 USB 4 ports on the top. You can see one of them's plugged in up here behind my little specification slide. It's got a mass of about 1.6 pounds. I actually measured it with my scale. And I don't know if that's the official weight or not, but it's the weight I got when I measured it. For reference, that makes it not quite as heavy as the original Legion Go, but it is pretty weighty. So if you're concerned about a device being heavy, well, if you go one this size, it's going to be heavy anyway. But if you're concerned about the device being heavy, well, yeah, it kind of is. But, you know, it may be mitigated by the ergonomics of the device as well. So, basically a rundown of the specs. Now, of course, you can read about the mass and the size. Let's actually take this device and see how it compares to some of its competitors. So I'm going to slide it up a bit. I get a reflection here. Of course, one of the big competitors for this device is the Steam Deck. So if you put these two next to each other, yep, the Steam Deck upside down. So if you put these two devices next to each other, one thing you'll notice is they're pretty much the same width. And the Legion, I think the ergonomic bumps are a little bit bigger, so the Legion Go is a little bit thicker. But they're pretty close. So one thing is the screen is bigger on the Legion Go and higher resolution. This is the OLED deck here. You can see that the deck is not quite as tall, but it is pretty close to the Go S, surprisingly enough, in most of its dimensions. Of course, I think what makes the decks bigger is these trackpads. The Legion Go has, or Legion Go S has one of these little trackpads. I honestly don't find the trackpad here, at least so far, all that useful, except for maybe for navigating stuff in Windows. It's kind of on the small side, but it is there, and it's helpful for moving the mouse around, although I'm not sure I'd want to use it to do in-game controls. So that's the Steam Deck. How about the Ally? You can see the Ally is a little smaller. It's not quite as wide. The Ally is definitely thinner because there is very little in the way of ergonomics on the back of the Ally. There's a bit more substantial bump here on the Legion Go S. And I'll go ahead and say Legion Go S is a very comfortable handheld to hold. You know, even though it's substantially heavier than the Ally, in the hand, it feels more comfortable. And I think I can hold this for longer than I can hold the Ally, just because of the way that they've designed this. Makes it kind of nice. It's actually kind of like the Steam Deck in that way. The Steam Deck's also pretty nice to hold. Even though this is lighter, it just doesn't feel as good in the hands, and you get this digging into your palm. So the Go S definitely has some good ergonomics going for it. Now, of course, the original Legion Go. As you can see, the original Legion Go is, in terms of, I guess, the width and the overall thickness, they're pretty close. Maybe the original Legion Go is slightly wider. Of course, controllers detach on the Legion Go, and they don't detach on the Go S. You can see the trackpad here is bigger. Trackpad's a little bit more useful on the original Legion Go than on the Go S. But again, I don't really play games with this on the original Go either. So there's that. Now, you can see the D-pad's a little bit different design. It's more of the round one here as opposed to just the plus here. I think I've been satisfied with the D-pad so far. I'm not a big D-pad gamer, but what I've played on here with the D-pad has been fine. I think maybe a little bit better than this right here. The joysticks feel actually really good. I've been impressed with the joysticks on the Legion Go S. I think there's been maybe some improvement over the original Legion Go. One thing that the original Legion Go doesn't really have going for it is, again, they've got these angular things right here. Oh, there, it came into view for a second. But you've got the angular bits here that kind of dig in to the palm a bit. Although I don't find the Legion Go all that bad to hold. The Go S is more comfortable, just straight up. It's also not quite as heavy, so I think you could probably hold it for a little bit longer. Now, of course, the disadvantage is the controls don't detach, so you can't actually use the Legion Go S as a little tablet, kind of like you can with the original Legion Go. There's no kickstand on the back, although you have options, I think. You can get a grip. And if anybody wants to know where I got this, and then just leave me a note in the comments. But I got this little grip that has a kickstand, so you can kind of add a kickstand if you want to, but you can't detach the controllers. But you can still, if you use one of these grips, actually use the Legion Go as kind of a media device. I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but the screen of the Go S is actually really good. It's one of the better screens I've seen. In fact, the only screen that I've seen, at least as far as IPS screens go on these handhelds, that's any better, or that looks any better, is the original Legion Go screen. One thing Lenovo has done right with the two handhelds that they've basically released so far is the screens are very good quality. Now, again, I don't know if you can tell that on the camera. Certainly sitting here looking at it with my eyes, the screen is nice and sharp. It looks really good. And unlike the original Legion Go, this one is also native landscape, which means that you won't have weird problems like you have with games like Persona 3 Reload on the original Legion Go, where if you go into the graphics settings and try to change the resolution, it gets all confused because the screen on the Legion Go is actually a portrait screen from a tablet. But this one, no problems like that here. So what do we got here? Well, we've got Hall sticks. We've talked about the D-pad for a bit. The teeny tiny, not all that useful, maybe, touchpad. By the way, the touchpad is clickable. You can click on this to do mouse click. You have your basic, here's the Legion Go button. Here's the button to bring up the, quick adjustment menu. You have the usual buttons here. There actually are trigger locks on the back. Now, I would demonstrate those. They basically convert the triggers from being digital to analog. I would demonstrate them in a game, but unfortunately, the current firmware update for Legion Go controllers disables the digital triggers. I don't know why. I think it's a bug. I have looked on the Lenovo forums, and they say that they are going to release an update very soon that will fix that issue. But would be nice to have the digital triggers working. One thing you may notice about the triggers is they are relatively short throw here. It doesn't bother me, but they don't necessarily go all the way down. Again, for what I use this for, it's not a problem to me at all. The triggers are certainly responsive enough. They're easy to use. And joysticks are pretty nice. Let's actually pull up a little controller tester, and I'll show you what I mean. So here's a little control test program. As you can see, you've got your usual analog triggers here. What I'll show you about the, let me flip the trigger locks here, and you'll see what the problem is. So they don't register at all now. Again, this is a firmware bug that Lenovo says they're going to be releasing a fix for. But as of recording this video, fix hasn't been done yet. So you can only use the triggers as analog. The buttons feel nice. Of course, you've got the usual controls here. No real problems that I've noticed, either on the tester or playing games. There are your basic, analog sticks. And so far in games, they've performed pretty well. So no complaints here. But getting back out of the joystick test program, one thing I did want to show you is the Legion software. And I don't think that the official Lenovo software is anywhere near as polished as SteamOS, which of course you can install on this, so you can get the Steam interface if you like. I mean, not just installing Steam on Windows, but just installing the entire SteamOS. It's fully supported. Now, of course, you have the quick select menu over here right now, and you can select TDP and performance settings and all that. You can select a little overlay if you like. It's not going to do much here with me just running Windows. But you can kind of see what we've got here. If you are familiar with the original Legion Go, it's pretty much the same thing. Now, as far as the Legion Go software itself, if you want to pull up Legion Space, of course, you can hit this button here, and it'll take a second to load. Right now I'm in balance mode, so I'm not running the fans too much on this device. One complaint I have about Legion Space is it always comes up by default to the store, and there's no way to change that. It would be nice if instead it would default to your library so you could start a game. But honestly, I never use this interface to start games. I just start them from Steam. So, I just load up Steam. Mainly what you would do with Legion Space is just adjust settings and check for updates, things like that. So, that's pretty much all I would do with it. So you can, by the way, the settings here for updating drivers, just click on disk and drivers, then click check for updates. You can do some controller settings in here. If you want to adjust trigger settings, adjust the controls in any way, play around with the lighting, all that can be done from Legion Space. But by and large, I just don't use it. I just start games from Steam or from the Windows desktop for things that I'm not using through Steam, like for emulators, for example. So, yeah, Legion Space is the thing. It's here. But if you're anything like me, you'll probably only be using it for checking for updates. So far, there's been a few updates. There was a graphics driver update that installed. I didn't get a chance to test it before it installed because it was ready when I bought this. And like I said, there's been a controller update that accidentally broke the digital mode for the triggers. And hopefully there'll be another update. At least Lenovo says there is one in the pipeline. So we'll see when that drops. But you would install it from here if it doesn't come through plain old Windows Update. Actually, I hear on SteamOS, the trigger thing has been fixed. We're just waiting for it on Windows. So this basically is just Legion Space. Again, I don't hardly ever use it. So, I find just the Steam launcher or just the Windows interface here. If I want to launch, Duckstation or PCSX2, I can just launch it from here. Don't really see the need to run Legion Space most of the time. Do use this. So for changing the thermal modes, performance, stuff like that, and for popping up the little performance meter if I want to see things like frame rate. And you can use this to change the display settings. I usually just leave it like this, and if I need anything different, I just adjust it in game, but I usually just leave it at 120 hertz and full resolution, because why not? So I think Legion Space probably is, I'd say probably, it definitely is less polished than the interface you would get out of Armory Crate on the Ally, or definitely SteamOS on the Steam Deck, or SteamOS installed on this device. Now, of course, we've seen the device itself. We've talked about what it's got. Oh, by the way, there is a micro SD slot down here, and as far as I know, it doesn't toast micro SD cards like the original Ally. Always a good thing. And let's actually take a look at some gameplay here. Now, one thing I should, I guess, mention is the gameplay footage was recorded on my kind of old, not so good camera, so if it looks a little bit different than the rest of the video, well, that's why. Just didn't feel like recording it again. I actually recorded the gameplay footage, within a couple of days of actually getting this. So what you're going to be seeing with the gameplay footage is kind of, okay, out of the box, how does this device perform? So we're going to start with, well, what we always start with on this channel. Provided the device is capable of playing it, you know which game is going to come first. So let's go ahead and take a look at Star Ocean 3 running on PCSX2.
You're wasting my time.
Be warned, I won't hold anything back. Is that all you got? Psychic! Psychic! Is that all you got? That was fun.
You're wasting my
Be
time.
warned, I won't hold anything back. Psychic! Glory to Harry! Spear of might! Glory to Harry! Glory to Harry! Hammer of might! Glory to Harry! Glory to Harry!
Too late for regret.
Real fight!
Wait, I'll go easy on you.
Psychic! Spear of might! Spear of Psychic! Hammer of might! Healing! Healing! Hammer of might!
I'd have preferred a more worthy opponent.
Ha! No problem!
You're way uptight. Chill out, okay?
Psychic! Psychic! Hammer of Psychic! Hammer of might!
Spear of might!
That was easy.
You're wasting my time.
Could use a little sparring practice. Psychic! Psychic! Glory to Harry! Psychic! Glory to Harry! Glory to Harry!
Know your enemy before you strike the first blow.
As you would expect, Star Ocean 3 doesn't really present any problems, and you won't run into any real problems other than maybe a couple games not compatible with the emulator trying to run PlayStation 2 games on this. One thing that's really nice is PlayStation 2 games look really good on this screen. So this is getting to be my platform of choice, I think PC, for doing a PS2 emulation. Of course, you can't put these in your pocket, but if you're sitting somewhere where you got some space, you get an excellent experience. Let's look at PlayStation 1. I like the old PlayStation 1 space shooter games. So we're going to take a look at Colony Wars here, running on Duckstation. Now, one thing I should mention here is when I recorded this particular segment, I had my Colony Wars disc stored on the SD card. So you might see a little bit of stuttering on here. For most games, you can play them off the SD card fine by having Duckstation cache, but Colony Wars is a multi-disc game, and Duckstation doesn't want to cache that. Of course, the solution to that is just have those games on internal storage, and you don't get this issue at all. But if you do see a slight amount of stuttering in this, it's because the game is on an SD card right now. So, that said, let's take a look at Colony Wars upscale to, 1080p. I think it's 5 times upscaling on Duckstation.
This is Galanire Battle Platform. Estimated time to warp hole closure, 5 minutes.
We've got fighters coming through the warp hole. Let's give them hell. Great shot.
This is Command. A large enemy presence has been detected emerging from warp holes. This poses a major threat to Galanire platform. Engage and destroy enemy craft.
This is Battle Platform. Galanire warp hole successfully closed. Navy Titan has been crushed. Clear surrounding area of enemy craft and return to base. Surrounding area clear. Well done, mission complete. Come back on board.
Commencing docking sequence.
Of course, you're not going to get much problems running emulation on here. I have my favorite systems are PlayStation and PlayStation 2, so that's why you see them in my videos all the time. But, of course, one thing you are probably going to want to do with a PC handheld is play PC games. So, we're going to take a look at a couple here, and separate from this video because it's probably going to be pretty long as it is anyway. Separate from this video, I'll do a little bit more performance testing, but we're going to take a look first at a little bit of Borderlands 3, do maybe a cartel run or so. So let's take a look at Borderlands 3 on the Lenovo Legion Go S.
I want to have a bounty! Assassination on the house. Get him, Zoomer! You'll be ashamed of you. I'm in this for the fun of it. And that was fun.
you can probably see so far that we don't have quite as much punch here on this Z2 Go processor as we do on Z1 Extreme devices like the original Legion Go and the Ally. So you might notice that seeing this the PC games. We're going to look at a game that's a little bit easier to run, though. Let's take a look at Persona 3 Reload. And thankfully, on this device, since the screen is native landscape, there aren't any issues with actually adjusting the screen resolution and so forth if you want to, like there were on the original Legion Go. But let's take a look at how Persona 3 Reload plays on the Go S.
Another shadow up ahead. Let's get you more... The battle's... All right. Next, most enemies have an elemental affinity that they have low resistance to. Not only that, it can also... Knocking down an enemy creates an...
Weaknesses, huh? Got.
Wait! Just point it to my head, then pull the trigger. I can do this! Persona!
Whoa, you're not so bad yourself, Yucatan.
That's it, Takeba. You give it a try as well.
Persona!
Well done. Keep that up and...
I'll go with Orpheus.
Fantastic.
Totally. I can.
Can you try not being a creep?
Great. Look, leader, take note of each member's strengths and conduct the battle accordingly. I can still sense some enemies around. Let's move on.
Yeah.
The heck? Hey, found some kind of.
Yes, boxes like those seem to be scattered all throughout Tartarus. Sometimes they contain useful items for battle. See?
Oh, sweet! So they're basically like treasure chests. Hell yeah! Let's bust it open and see what's inside.
That looks like...
Hey.
Shut. Looks like they haven't noticed. Try sneaking up on them from behind. Next, I'm going first. Go on. I'll keep track of tactics. If you ever forget an enemy's...
I'll go with Persona.
All right, now...
An all-out attack?
It's a maneuver that engages the entire team in a coordinated... Naturally, the enemy has no way of defending against...
Whoa! That sounds... Orpheus!
This is our chance. Let's wipe them.
Let's do it. You're finished! How'd you like our all-out combo attack, you filthy shadows?
When I saw my opening, it's like my body just knew what to do.
That was magnificent teamwork. It's hard to believe it's your first time. As you grasp the flow of battle, you'll learn to coordinate with each other seamlessly. Let's apply what we've learned so far and continue exploring.
As you might have expected, no real problems with playing Persona 3. I didn't record the video, but, if you want to play Persona 5, you're not going to have any problems with this either. Persona 5 in particular, you can even play that on an Ambernic Win 600. So, I don't think you'll have much trouble with light PC games on this system. But we are going to take a look at one more game, and that game is No Man's Sky. So, one reason I picked No Man's Sky is I actually have some performance testing videos from some of the other systems that the Go S would be competing with on the channel. So you can take a look at how No Man's Sky performs on the Go S and then pull up, videos for the Steam Deck and the Ally and so forth. So you can get some direct comparisons there without making this video like 2 hours long. So let's take a look at No Man's Sky on the Go S.
Radiation protection falling.
At this point, you might be asking yourself, hey, wait a minute. Where's Cyberpunk? Heck, I can see it on the screen right there. Where are the Cyberpunk benchmarks? Well, as it turns out, I did run some Cyberpunk benchmarks, not only on this device, but I just reran them on some of the other devices I have access to. So rather than just watching the Cyberpunk benchmark video over and over and over again, let's just go straight to the results. So, you can see here, we've got on the left is the Legion Go S, our new system. This, by the way, is not using any kind of frame generation. So this is just straight up, how many frames per second can the game make? No fake frames, none of that stuff. I used the Steam Deck preset on all the devices, which meant that on the devices that have a 1080p screen, that was 1280 by 720 resolution. On the Legion Go's and the Steam Deck, that would be 1280 by 800, or 1280 by 800. So roughly comparable here, although I guess the Allies get a bit of a boost by having to render less pixels, slightly. But whatever, we just want to have some comparable numbers here. So you can see the Legion Go S on the left. You can see that performance mode you get, and the blue bars here, the average, which is probably the important number. So you're getting between 50 and 55 frames per second in performance mode, which is the red light on the power. The power button on the Legion Go and the Legion Go S actually changes color to indicate the TDP settings. So red mode, if you like. Performance mode, you get a little under 55 frames per second. If you want to go all out, you can use the 40 watt mode to get a little bit closer to 60 frames per second. Although I'm not sure I'd recommend doing that unless you like fan noise, because the fan definitely runs pretty hard on the 40 watt mode. Now, you could probably strike a happy medium in there by maybe making yourself a custom 25 watt mode. I don't have the data on me there. That should get you somewhere between performance and 40 watt without actually having the fans blast full blast all the time. Now, you can see the really bad performer here is the Z1 Ally. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend the Z1 Ally unless you can get it really, really cheap, unless you just want to run emulation. Z1 Ally is pretty fine for that. But as you can see, the performance running things like modern games like Cyberpunk is awful on the original Z1 Ally, and even running it at 30 watts doesn't make it much better. Of course, the Z1 Extreme outperforms the Legion Go S on every setting, really. If you set it to the 15 watt performance mode, the Z1 Extreme Ally gets a little over 55 frames per second. And of course, if you put it in turbo mode, it gets over 60. So definitely you can see that the Z1 Extreme is a stronger chip than the Z2 Go that they put in the Legion Go S. So if you're looking strictly for power, then you're going to want to pick the original Legion, the original Legion Go also. The original Legion Go, I didn't put it in the slide here because it's getting big enough already. But the original Legion Go has the Z1 Extreme. It's going to perform similarly to the Ally here. But if you're looking for straight performance, one of the Z1 Extreme systems, even though they're older than the Go S, is going to give you better performance. I mentioned that because you can sometimes get them cheaper. The Z1 Extreme Ally, when Best Buy puts those on sale, you can pick up the open box one at around $300-ish. So that's kind of hard to beat. But the Legion Go S definitely does better than the Z1 Ally, and you can see it actually does a little bit better than the Steam Deck here. So I got the Steam Deck OLED over there on the far right. You can see that it gets not quite 50 frames per second on this. And the Go S outdoes it a little bit. But the Steam Deck still has respectable performance. The main thing about the Steam Deck is Steam Deck's battery life is better than this. So the Deck OLED has pretty darn good battery life run it most of the time. But, it's old and it kind of shows it. Although the Deck OLED stomps all over the original Z1. But we're talking about the Go S here. As you can see, the performance is okay. Of course, if you want to use frame generation, you can make the games look a lot smoother. But I wanted to do all these tests without frame generation. Just put everybody on a level playing field and see what kind of performance you can actually get without resorting to tricks. So here is a comparison of a bunch of systems and several different settings. So you can kind of see, okay, if I spend the money for the Legion Go S, what am I going to get? All right, so now that I've had the Legion Go S for a couple of weeks now, what are my overall thoughts and what are the good points and bad points of the device? Well, let's start with the good stuff. So one of the things I definitely noticed about this system is that in the hands, it is very comfortable. Easy to hold. I mean, even though it's a heavy device, it's one you could hold for a while. I think it shares those characteristics with the Steam Deck. I think the this and the Steam Deck, I'm not really sure I can pick which one of the two is more comfortable, but they are definitely more comfortable than pretty much all the other PC devices that I've used. So this is definitely has a good feel in the hands. And, you know, if you want to play games for a long time, that's kind of important. So the other thing I would definitely mention about this is the screen quality is excellent. You know, Lenovo has not skimped on screens for the devices they've made so far. So, and this is no exception. There is a very good screen in here. It looks really good. It now has variable refresh rate, so it actually looks even better when the device can't quite push 60 frames per second. You see a little bit less jittering. So, you know, one of the nicest screens I've seen on one of these devices so far. Now, I generally don't pick up some of the smaller manufacturer stuff, so I'm going to say, hey, this is probably the best screen I've seen on a mass market PC handheld up to this point. No complaints about the screen. Also, one of the complaints about the original Legion Go was that the speakers were kind of bad. And I actually have a video, if you have an original Legion Go, about, if you've not done this already, how you can improve sound quality on the original Legion Go. But even doing that, problem is positioning of the speakers on the original Legion Go leads to the sound not sounding all that good anyway. Luckily for us, front-firing speakers. So I don't think the sound quality goes up to, say, the MSI Claw level, but it's fine. So they have definitely addressed the issue of not being able to hear stuff on the original Legion Go. So these speakers, you know, they're, again, not as good as what I've heard on the Claw, but they're fine. They're not like bottom tier anymore. So good job fixing the issue with the speakers. Now, one other thing, SteamOS support. And I will probably end up installing SteamOS on this at some point. Right now, I'm going to continue to use Windows for a while, see how that goes. But you do have the option of a fully official SteamOS installed on here. And as far as I know, at the moment, I think pretty much everything is working properly except for the little trackpad. From what I hear, that doesn't quite work just yet, but I'm sure they'll get that fixed at some point. But everything else works just fine. From what I hear, you get a performance boost installing SteamOS on this device, and you also get something of a battery life boost as well. So you can basically just wipe Windows off of this and install SteamOS. They actually do sell one with SteamOS installed, and you know, that's also an option if you just don't want to bother with Windows at all. But official SteamOS support is a kind of nice thing to have, because, you know, Steam Deck is an excellent gaming system, and the fact that everything is all nice and integrated, you don't have to deal with like Windows stuff, is a definite plus. And you can have that on this device without too much fuss. Yeah. So, you know, I'm happy having that option. And again, I'll probably take advantage of it later on. For now, I'll just continue to use Windows for a bit. Mainly because I have all this stuff set up already. But, you know, you do have the option of, you know, SteamOS. Now, another thing to mention is this is actually sold at real stores. And you might say, okay, well, what's the big deal about that? Well, if you don't like it, you can take it back. Or if you have a problem initially and you don't want to have to go through, warranty service or anything like that, you can just take it back to the store. That's kind of a pretty powerful benefit, particularly if you're comparing to some of these, Chinese devices. I say Chinese here. Of course, Lenovo is Chinese, but Lenovo actually has an international presence. I'm talking about devices more like your basic Ioneos, where, you might get service, you might not. So, and if you bought it, you're stuck with it. So that is a thing. Also, you can get these open box, with a return policy rather than just buying used from some rando. So it's nice that these are mass market devices. They're available in retail stores, and they get the kind of support that a device that's available in a retail store would get. And there's definite value in that. Now, of course, there are some cons with this device, and one of the kind of obvious ones here, and you've probably seen it in the performance videos and all that, and the issue is performance. So performance is not as good as the previous generation Z1 Extreme, which makes this device a pretty hard sell at its list price of $729.99. I will go ahead and say it. Do not buy this device at list price. Get it on sale. Get it on sale plus open box. If this device is closer to $500 instead of $730, it's definitely a better value proposition. But again, do not buy this device at retail because it's frankly silly. Like, they did put 32 gigs of RAM and a terabyte SSD in there, but $729 is way too much money. Despite all the good things about this device, it's way too much money for something with the processing power of the Z1 Go. Z2 Go. Not worth it. So only buy this if it's on sale. On sale, it's a nice device. You'll probably be happy with it. But at full retail, just no. The device is overpriced as it is. I mean, even with the tariffs and all that stuff raising prices, it was never, even with that, buy one of the older devices with the more powerful chip. It has less RAM, but you'll still get better performance, as you can see in the Cyberpunk comparisons. So the elephant in the room as far as, should I get this or not, is how much can you get it for? Do not pay list price for this. It is not worth it. Sale price, sure. Sale price, this is a nice device. I really like it. I actually like this device, I think, better than I should. But it doesn't perform as well as the original Legion Go, but it's way nicer to hold. And, they've done stuff, to correct, you might say, some of the flaws that the original Legion Go had, particularly in the ergonomics and the control layout when the controls are docked. They've done a lot that's right here, but that price. So at long last, we've come to the end of my initial impressions and testings video for the Lenovo Legion Go S with the Z2 Go processor. So just a couple of final thoughts here. Should you get the device? Only on sale. I've said this earlier in the video. I really like this device. I'm enjoying using it. I've been using it a lot, recently, playing games, watching media, take advantage of the excellent screen. Speakers are good enough for media watching too. So there's a lot I like about this device, but you can't buy this for list price. It's just too expensive. Now, of course, the flaw of the whole thing is the performance. The Z2 Go chip is not as powerful as the Z1 Extreme. Now, as if Lenovo's actually realized this at this point, they are releasing a version of this device. Actually, I think two versions, one with Windows and one with SteamOS. They are re-releasing this device, or adding a new model, I guess, is what they're actually doing, that has the Z1 Extreme. You pay a price premium for that. But if money's no object, basically the Z1 Extreme version of this same device is going to correct the performance issues, but still have all the advantages that, you know, this one would over the original Legion Go and some of the other competitors. So they're just releasing that kind of now. I don't know how many people actually have one, but, you know, I think they're being shipped either now or pretty soon. So the Z1 Extreme version of this would be another option. But, you know, if you can get the Z2 Go cheap enough, you know, it kind of holds its own. It's not going to give you quite the performance, but it may in fact do. Just depends on what you want to play. So, you know, should you buy this particular model with the Z2 Go? Yeah, on sale. And I know I've said that a couple times during the video, but, you know, I just can't fathom $730 for this. You know, sad thing is the Z1 Extreme model is going to be like 800 and something, but again, probably for that you wait on a sale too, or just go back and buy the original Legion Go for way less money. All right, so my initial impressions on the Legion Go S. If you enjoyed the video, remember to leave me a like. If you want to see more gaming and handheld related content, not just PC handhelds like this, but I also do some Android handhelds and some of the smaller Linux handhelds every once in a while. In addition, and been doing some controllers recently too. I have a few more controllers that I haven't shown on video yet, but they'll be coming eventually. You know, who has time for everything, right? But if you want to see more of that kind of content, subscribe to the channel. You know, every subscriber helps, pushes my videos up so other people can find them. But at any rate, thank you for watching this video, particularly if you made it to the end. I don't know how long it is right now, but I'm pretty sure with all the gameplay footage in there, it's going to be a pretty long one. Which, let's face it, most of my initial impressions videos are kind of long. But thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.